Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about Jupiter retrograde in Gemini from October 9th, 2024 until February 4th, 2025. Welcome back everyone. I am so happy to be coming on, yes, in live premieres. If you guys are here and watching this video during the live premiere, welcome. I'm so excited to be hosting this season of live premieres, which I felt was so important here at the end of 2024 and transitioning into the calendar new year of 2025. I think that we have a lot to heal through during this time and a lot of space to hold about the changes that we're all going through and that we're all facing. So if you're here and enjoying the live premiere, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. And if you are seeing this video later, do come and check out my live premieres every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central time, and 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's a wonderful chance to spend some time in community and chat about any issues that are relevant to this general time. And yes, without further ado, let's talk about Jupiter retrograde in Gemini and what we have to expect with this transit. So what is jumping out at me first with this general energy is that we want to communicate ourselves better, or we're wanting to have the chance to engage in some type of communication or to speak our truth or to express, correspond, or communicate some type of internal problem or internal buildup of energy. The planet of Jupiter is the natural ruler of Sagittarius, which means that it is all about expansion, growth, intensification. And then Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is more of a small energy and more finite, more detailed, more reserved, and more precise as a whole. So yes, Jupiter is debilitated in Gemini. We have a retrograde of a debilitated Jupiter coming over these next few months. So all of our personal matters of expansion, anything that the ninth house in Sagittarius rules over, self-expression, expansion, growth, material growth, philosophical growth, growth of the self, life expanding and becoming something more prominent, is going to be something that goes a little bit retrograde here. So it's very common during this time to see that maybe some of the goals that we've set for ourselves are not coming to fruition, or that perhaps we're not acknowledging the season that we're actually in, which might be more of one that relates to withdrawing in some way, or beginning to bring more order and precision to what we already have. And beginning also to work smarter instead of harder, as perhaps it's a bit cliche, but I think that that's one of the main points of Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is like, okay, maybe there's not as much rote ability for expansion, so we have to like really use the leverage and the intelligence that we have to move forward here. One of the main crises that I feel as we're hitting this general timeline is people pushing too hard, people doing things in an outworn or outdated way, people trying to preserve some type of previous system that is out of time. So we have been in update mode, all right, ever since we've been having Pluto retrograde on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. We've been experimenting with new ways, thinking about how we could make certain changes in our lives or what relevance we could seek in a new kind of way. And the retrograde back into Capricorn is kind of like having some people reinvent the wheel or having some people lean into the old way of doing things, where they're needing actually to do things in more new wave, updated ways. Now, this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going to be another version of that in a way, as we might have experimented in some ways, or we might have tried to go out on a limb or try something uncontextual, and now that effort has to be integrated. So the previous experiments or the previous updates and changes we've been trying to make in our life will also be concluded upon differently here. Language will be put to experience with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, meaning that what we've been through, what we've experienced, our recent histories especially, may sort of be concluded upon, or we may put language to it, like kind of coming to a solid conclusion and communicating that to ourselves about like what the last few years of our life were like. So there's some type of correspondence or communication emphasis with this transit. Again, Gemini is the sign of communication. It's the sign of short distance travel, the sign also of, in some cases, the immediate family as well, siblings, cousins. There is an emphasis on also relationships that have become like inherited family as well. And you can refer back to my general Jupiter in Gemini video, which I'll link below, where I was talking about how one of the main positive points of this transit in general is the ability to quickly communicate things, to clear the air. Sometimes we can, with one email, do what we had to previously work, multiple weeks or multiple months on to accomplish. We have a very expansive ability of communication right now. And we can also use our previous communication or our previous words or writings to our benefit now. We don't have to reinvent the wheel with everything. So with this retrograde, this can also be a challenging area of like, how do I optimize my work output as a person, my energy? Because taking into account the other astrology at the same time, Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, Pluto at the anaretic degree of Capricorn at the beginning of this transit, there would also be some kind of like long-running odyssey, I almost want to say, of events that we have to integrate and communicate in appropriate, rational, scaled, and reasonable ways. So we have a challenge with that here, as there might also be a lot of exaggeration, a lot of marketing, a lot of spinning things as well. Some people could be, I'm not going to say people, it's a transit where lying would happen, but it could be that as well. And maybe it doesn't have such a sinister motivation behind it, but I think that the truth could really be stretched during a Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, also with Saturn and Neptune. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Of course, we did have the square of Jupiter and Saturn in Pisces and Gemini, which was a lot of pressure on people's reality. That was a very difficult quantum transit. I made a video about that, which I'll link below. But yes, just so you guys know, I think that it was like August 17th or something. I'll put it below in the description box, but I do have written down in my notes that December 24th, 2024, we will have another Jupiter-Saturn square exact. And then also June 17th, 2025, another exact square of Jupiter and Saturn, but that's when they actually cross their cusps and we have Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Aries. So we have in August 2024, December 2024, and June 2025, sort of like three-way connecting point. So any type of karmas you're navigating or any type of major projects, major purposes that you have in your life right now, there are very serious choices made during those times, August 2024, December 2024, June 2025, that will basically orient how you're sort of moving your life force energy. Is we have like a reorientation of the mind space for some people, and this is like this is kind of a lot for some people to internalize, because we're not so much dealing with physical things with Jupiter in Gemini, and then especially having Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and then Pluto will be in Aquarius as well for some of this too. So this is very unphysical. This is very much the mental space, the logic space, words, communication, which, remember, words, the spoken word, the written word is not physical. It's in some way conjecture, or it's creating a mental response or communicating something. And this could be a time where people over materialize the spoken word, or they over estimate or overblow the spoken, written, idealized words. So ideologies, ideals, philosophies, dogmas. Okay. These, even manipulation or gaslighting, narcissism, all of these kinds of things are going to be very, very much a part of what we're going through over this next year, really. And we came out of sort of a hyper-material paradigm back in like May and June of 2024 when we had Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus, and Pluto retrograding on that cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, and Uranus in Taurus, and of course we had Taurus season. Virgo season also brought about some grand earth trines. So we had quite a growth of hedonism and a growth of focus on the material, and these transits, specifically this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, are really shifting us into a much more mental, linguistic, psychological space. So as we are navigating this period of time, it would be important to remember that that's where a lot of people are too. Maybe appearances could be deceiving during this time. Also, material gestures or material choices may be like the tip of the iceberg, in essence. So you might want to be careful during this time about judging someone based on their material status or the material elements of their life. Also careful about taking people's word for the total story here. As, really it is a time where lying would increase. It's a time where duplicity or two-facedness or word salad or, things that are not totally a lie, but not really true either. Like, that's the thing about Gemini. It's not like that sort of malevolent, sinister lying energy, but sometimes there can be a situation where it's like what is said is not necessarily a lie, but it's not really right either. There's like that gray zone or that blurry area, that blurred line between truth and fiction, that this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is going to serve a lot of chaotic experiences around. So is it a time where being more understated and saying less would be more? I think so. That would be my opinion and how I'm going to try to be facing this as much as I can. On Patreon in the October 2024 sign-by-sign readings, I was talking a lot about how this year cycle of 2024 is a lot better for silence, and it's a lot better for not over-speaking or over-articulating things. And there's a lot of subtlety at play. There's a lot of, small gestures and small movements of energy that are really where the power is. And sometimes when we try to speak too much around it, or we try to sort of extract too much from a situation by confining it to words or confining it to conjecture of the mind, we can kind of destabilize the whole experience. So putting that into simpler terms, it seems like a destructive time to just wear the heart on the sleeve, although we don't want to withhold too much either. Like, it's all a balance, right? We have the South Node in Libra. We have also a solar eclipse in Libra happening right around the time that Jupiter is going retrograde. So it's not about being extreme on any one side of this, but that sort of balanced midpoint, to me at this time, feels quite reserved, and it feels quite understated in a way. And I'm seeing a lot of people who have to speak too much or have to over explain or over gas certain conjecture in their lives. It can definitely abandon or betray some of the mystique. It can also question the independence factor in our life as well, because it feels like having to communicate so much, or having to speak so much, or having to basically sell a certain idea, or having to really convince someone or persuade something. It feels like that is an indication of fleeting self-confidence, or wow, if I don't persuade this, or if I don't sell this, or if I don't, make sure that people are on the same page as me, there's some type of bad outcome for me. So that's the shadowy point of this transit, is people could have a desperation here to overspeak, or to be so persuasive, or to try to match what they think the wants of other people are. So that is hard, because that could also be wrong. People could be incorrect about what they even think other people are seeking. They could then try to generate that, and then unwittingly kind of put other people off. So it's very easy to see like people pleasing here, or it's very easy to see also manipulation or coining that kind of thing as well. And another message that I've gotten about this time is there's just kind of like two sides to every coin as well. So all of these situations that we might have in our life right now that we're thinking, oh, this is such a bad situation, or oh, I've got to get out of this. Well, what you go into is not going to be perfect. So all of that grass is greener on the other side complex that was really coming up over these last few years. We have to really understand that life is life, and every situation has two sides to a coin, right? Sign of Gemini, two sides, two faces, heads and tails, never is the coin going to be one-sided. And so a lot of us are seeking out these proverbial one-sided coins here where we're like, that's the situation that's going to be nothing but positive for me, and I'm going to use my persuasion and my speaking and my, marketing ability to rush toward that situation that perhaps I have an over-romanticized ideal about. So definitely reining in too much romanticization would be important here. And then I also want to talk about the internal space with this too. So we've talked a little bit about how some people are struggling through like their external communication. We're also dealing with internal communication here, how we talk to ourselves, how we frame certain events in our lives to ourselves. Optimism versus pessimism, as this could actually be a surprisingly pessimistic transit. Jupiter is naturally a very optimistic and expansive energy, but throwing it into its debilitated sign and retrograde, it feels like a growth of pessimism. It feels like a growth of even self-effacing behavior or introversion, as like people could be hyper-focused on their own self-dialogue or hyper-focused on, journaling practices or some type of communication. Too much communication with this. Careful about being in a relationship with someone and having to like text them all the time, or having to ask people like, where were you or something. Also like too much emailing, too much texting, too much writing, too much corresponding, too much bill paying, too much spending, all of that. Economics are also somewhat ruled by Gemini because of the communicative nature of them. The banking system, it's a very communicative system at its base, right? Underneath the exchange of money is a lot of data and infrastructure that is simply communicative in nature. So, yeah, banking will be an industry that may, there may be new, okay, if we're talking about industries, there may be new banking regulations here, or there may be new technologies relating to how money changes hand. Definitely, with Uranus still in Taurus, and of course Jupiter was just in Taurus, so that now it's moved here, and there might be another level of that here. But yes, also telecommunications, phones, computers, internet, softwares, cybersecurity. There could be like difficulties with cybersecurity during this time. Data, Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, data leaks, data security could be under major pressure here. Also social media. So yeah, those are the industries that I feel like really having some challenges during this time would be banking, telecommunications, data security, and social media. As social media is also ruled by Gemini, and it has a very Jupiterian quality as well. So we could be having some crisis on social media for sure. I've been seeing like a lot of YouTubers leaving the platform, for example, because I think that a lot of the business models around it have been struggling. So anything like that, if you don't have like your own hard-earned stability aside from relying on the sort of ebbing and flowing nature of chaotic markets, this could be a hard time. So if you're too reliant on any type of business model that has a lot of like volatility, that like an increase in volatility could be likely here. And also like what people are saying, right? So people connected to these companies or social media influencers or people with stakes could like say things that add to volatility, or, it's kind of like people who are very prominent, like, one word can influence the markets. Like there's going to be a lot of that. I think that's going to be very irritating for people to like, have to go through sizable difficulties with their material well-being because of just like a few words that some person says, and people are then going to maybe start to collectively think differently about, speaking or, the influence of things that are put into words, like all of that could be kind of changing here. As also like words could mean less to people, or, they want to see action. They want to see material ideas that are communicated. So very hard to rely on something like word salad during this time, or to not really have a lot of substantive, clear-cut paths forward actually physically in place. Not even just talking about them, but having them physically in place. So taking this back down to the mundane and the individual, do you have pathways physically in place in your own life? Or is there a lot of thinking, talking, and conjecture about them? Probably the most important question I can ask in this video. Because this would be a time, Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, that was a very important time over 2023. And part of 2024 to like really have physical lines, material shifts in place. And now there's a lot of dialogue and syntax coming up about these things, and maybe slight changes that have to be made, but the physicality should remain. So this can mean a lot of different things for different people, but try to be careful about getting too caught up in the mind here and now. We had time to really be there over the entire entry point of Jupiter in Gemini. So this is like May until September of 2024. Now think about that. Think about how much more May to September of 2024 was a like mental game and a like self-communication challenge, so on and so forth, and compare that maybe also to the last few years, and you can kind of start to see where it's like, what, maybe I am overthinking things, maybe I just need to take action, and maybe I just need to know what kind of firm, solid action would bring more benefit into my experience now, and try to lean more into that physical paths, physical choices, workouts, rather than thinking, like careful about over planning here. Planning could be in shadow. Both of the Mercury signs, Gemini and Virgo, have some type of rulership over planning. Jupiter likes spontaneity. So that's one of the reasons why it's debilitated in Gemini, because Gemini likes planning and Jupiter likes spontaneity. So there's that tug of war here too, during this time, like, okay, I'm planning, and I'm actually seeing that all of my energy is going to that and exhausting me, and there's no like real physical manifestation coming as a result of this planning. Now we could be seeing that at a macro level too, like words, ideas, but it's all just still kind of functioning in a broken way. So also at the micro, it's like, okay, I'm thinking about that diet or that exercise regime or about getting my health better, but it's all thoughts. And why is there a fear at this time? This is a great line of questioning to journal about or to think about. If we're going to think about anything, why is it not coming into the physical? What is the disconnect between the knowing of what's right, what's materially healthier, what's a better path forward, and then the actual action? Because that connecting point between those two things is really the point of power during this time. And I hope that you all will consider not holding yourself back, or consider not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good too, while also not getting caught in totally thoughtless and sort of unproductive action as well. So that balance point, right? South Node in Libra. This Jupiter retrograde in Gemini starts during Libra season, right after a solar eclipse in Libra. So we can't afford for any type of extreme end of the spectrum to be the way that we're moving forward now. One of the final subjects I want to talk about for Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is stimulation, and how we are integrating stimulant into our lives. So that can be through what we're eating, caffeine, sugar. Also, that can be through screens, blue light, technology. or any other type of stimulant. So that's going to come up during Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. The energy that it takes to do things, okay, versus also what overstimulation is like, and the exhaustion or burnout that can come from overstimulation. As some people could be facing some type of burnout here too, Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. It could be like, I've just really overthought things. There's been a lot of overkill in my life, and like now I just have to like turn it off a little bit and get out of town. Or there could be a knowing that something like that is like coming as well. And then maybe there needs to be some type of communication process deep within that basically lays out like a more materially relevant way to heal from this, or to heal from overstimulation. It's like most people right now are kind of overstimulated or have some type of burnout functioning because of, so much energy going to media, or so much energy going to also very stimulating food as well, right? Uranus and Taurus, Jupiter and Taurus, stimulating food that is over too much flavor, too much noise, too much bright lights. It's sensory overload. So that would be something also that would perhaps be prevalent here too, is like sensory overload. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, everything's, and I've just been noticing this every time that I go out. It's like all the music is way too loud in the stores. If I go to a coffee shop or something, or anywhere really, the flavors are just way overbearing. And then also, the lights, okay, way too bright. Like people are so desensitized that it's starting to take this like overwhelm and overkill just to like make people notice things, or for them to still support it. So like, that's kind of scary. That's a very existential, especially problem here in the US, as I feel like that is really extreme in the US, and I don't know how it is elsewhere right now, as I have not left the country in quite a while. But I just noticed over these last few years, like how overstimulating and loud and overwhelming everything is. And like also with the scrolling, right? The doom scrolling, the social media stuff. It's like also bright, and the screens, and it's too much. Okay. It's too much. So, we will eventually get to Jupiter in Cancer, where a lot of things are going to have to quiet down a little bit. And that overstimulation is not going to be as popular. Maybe we can begin that momentum now. Can we begin that momentum by not being so supportive of these overstimulating, ridiculously flavorful, overwhelming offerings? Okay, can we maybe vote differently with our wallet, or kind of use our own households to modify or moderate that a little bit? Because I think that a lot of people don't understand how much personal moderation is a power during this time, and how much that's required to, like Saturn in Pisces, it kind of like blurs out and distorts some of these personal structures. So it's like, I'm just going to accept it all. I'm just going to accept that I'm being given something that's so unhealthy. I'm just going to accept that my household is not really moderating, or is not right for me, or it's like, it can be too accepting. So careful about accepting things that are not right. That's a sort of reason to lay out some personal communication or planning here, would be to like, how do we set a real physical path towards getting towards that better, more self-moderated, more balanced place? And how do we maybe steer things to what capacity we can, away from this like overwhelming, overgassed, overdone situation? It's a lot of desperation. It's a lot of antagonization of the future too. Because like being so stimulated now is going to buy from the future. It's going to make the future more dim if we have a lot of addictions going on, or if we're constantly sort of eroding our senses by allowing ourselves to consume so much noisy, loud, overflavorful, overstimulating stuff. So that's my food for thought for this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, everyone. Check out the description box below. The October 2024 sign-by-sign readings, as well as T-chats, benevolence, are all available on Patreon. They're now available for purchase on demand, I believe. But yes, the memberships are always the most valuable way to engage with the Patreon page, but come and check it out. And yes, we are indeed steering to be live premiering every single Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So come and check it out on YouTube. Very, still very clear and very focused on healing we will be. So come and see us every Friday. Keep tuned to the community tab. And yes, you can join my mailing list, other social media, all linked below in the description box, and your likes, comments, and subscribes here on YouTube are also a great way to support this channel in a totally free way. So thank you all so much for being here, and I love this community. Have a great, great week ahead. Much love. Bye.